going on, you guys? We're back out here again. We're going to go ahead and get started on this front brake system. I think I just have a bunch of air trapped in it, and I couldn't find my vacuum bleeder, so we're going to try it real quick. I'll time lapse it for you guys so you guys don't have to watch how much work I put into it. And then we'll go ahead and top off fluids, make sure the brake works, and we can button up everything else. One of the issues we had trying to bleed the system was dirt blocking the fluid flow, marked by this red line here. We ended up using a pick to clean it out so it would function properly. This is how a proper brake bleeder functions. Brake fluid's topped off. We'll go and put a cap on it, and we'll roll the bike and make sure the brake stops. Alright, system topped off. We're going to pick up the bike, try rolling it back. Brake seems to lock up. We'll know better once we test ride it. It's amazing how frustrating a whole bunch of air can be. I had to bleed the master. What you do is you put your finger over the upper banjo bolt hole and build pressure till you see air bubbles come out. It's kind of like bench bleeding it, but if you don't have a vise, you can just clamp it to the bars. Now the next thing we'll do is get this mirror on, then we'll hook up the wiring for the brake switch. Right hand mirror is on. We'll attach the wiring tomorrow. I gotta get some sleep. I just got off work. Had to come out here and try bleeding this brake system. So, wiring, battery cover, and then seat. And we might be able to start this thing up. Alright, when we pick this up, we'll get the wiring done. We gotta get the battery connected, battery cover on, go over everything, and we might be able to test start it. So, hopefully soon. Here we have the battery installed. I'm not putting a cover on it just in case I have to disconnect the battery in a hurry or anything. We'll go ahead and work our way up here. Let me kill this light so I don't blind you guys off the bars. But if you look right here, you guys can see the two wires. I can't get my hand in there, but you guys can see the two wires for the brake light switch. I just used some heat shrink over some spade connectors, and boom. I goofed up. I set up the camera, had it ready to go, and forgot to hit the start button. So I don't have an initial startup, but I do have a video of it idling. We did run into a big snag. Let me go ahead and show you that now. As you can tell in the video, we have fuel leaking from the float bowl. Either the float's sticking or the gasket's bad. I have to look up and see if I can find the gaskets, and I'm going to have to double check the float height. We're supposed to be at like 0.36 inches or 9.2 millimeters. So let's go get this tank back off, and we'll check out the float height and go from there. Upon further inspection, I noticed both carburetors leaking from the float bowls. So either the gaskets went bad, the float is not adjusted right, or the floats are stuck. We're going to go ahead and open the bottom of these up and inspect them and see what we can find out. We have the carburetors apart, or the bowl off, this one anyways. I'm going to go ahead and check the float height. You want it sitting, or it's resting on that, and we'll check it out, make sure it's okay. It needs to be at 9.2 millimeters or 0.36 inches. The other thing we're going to do is take the float out, because where the float rides there is also a seal here that can sometimes go bad. So let's see where we're at. Okay, so we have our float, I don't know what this technical term is, housing removed, you guys. It's got a little filter on it. The aluminum's in good shape, so I'm just going to put this back together. I noticed something looking at the carburetor that could have been my issue this whole time. But regardless, the floats were off by a 1.6 millimeter, which might not be a lot, but it's enough for me to want to readjust them. So we'll go ahead and reassemble this. I'm just going to do this by hand. Don't want to crank on it. When it gets in there, we'll put a little snug kiss on it with a ratchet. I'll show you guys what I found. This could have been my problem the whole time, but for both carburetors to have the same problem will be kind of interesting. Okay, we're good and snug. Now, we'll reassemble the float. It's as simple as this little guy. And this has a spring-loaded portion on top, and you want to make sure... Oh, get my big old mitts out of here. Sorry, guys. You guys want to make sure this little guy moves freely. So all that's functioning. Now we just need to make sure our float height's the same level. So we've got our little pin down here. We've got our float. We'll go ahead and set this where we can. Carburetors are so much more simple compared to the fuel injection systems. I will rather sit here and tweak a carburetor instead of messing with fuel injection all day. Now, we're going to double check our float height, sitting right here. As I said, Honda says 9.2 millimeters. Sorry guys, I had to do the math in my head as I was thinking. So what I did was set up our slide so it's set up, and we're dead on. So that carb is done. I'm not going to touch it any further. Now let me show you what I found. If you look at the gasket here in the corner, right here, get some light on it for you guys. Hard to see. There's a small split right there. I'm not seeing any others, but that's enough to cause a fuel leak too. And if I lay this on the carburetor, it doesn't line up with where I saw the leak, but it could be running around the edge of the carburetor. So for now, we're going to just keep it covered to keep dirt out of it. We're going to go ahead and check this other side and go make sure the floats are good here. Better do our due diligence, go through it all, and then go through it all instead of putting the carbs all the way back on the bike and finding other issues. So we'll take these 4 screws off again and see what we find out. Get a better view for you guys here. Once again, this all looks clean. This is all moving freely. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm not seeing any signs of leakage around here. We can still pull this and just check it for safety's sake. Make sure we're not running into any problems there. There we have our little pieces again. Filter looks clean. You can see daylight through it, nothing trapped on it. It's a good sign. That means the petcock filter is doing its job. Then we have our little seal, and that's clean and no cracks, no damages. So we can put it all back together. And we'll set the float height again. And we're going to end up needing new gaskets for the bowls. I'll have to get some coming or look in my parts. I thought I had some gaskets that might work for this. Nope, that's a Suzuki. Disregard, guys. We'll have to get some gaskets coming. Alright, that's in. We'll get our float back in it. Make sure there's no dirt or debris on these because I've dropped these on the grounds already twice. So, wipe all this down and reassemble. Something I meant to mention, if you're pulling your floats off, look for cracks or any signs of fluid being inside the float. That will also make your float act different. Sometimes these will age and get cracks and fill with fuel, and then that becomes an issue. And you can get replacements, but lucky for me, mine are in good shape still. So let me go ahead and finish buttoning this up. Alright, both floats are set to 9.2. We'll go ahead and put the new gaskets in these and then get these on the bike. Hopefully this solves our problem. Something simple like this can cause a lot of headache if you don't know what you're doing. When looking at the owner's manual, carburetor is sitting straight up and down like this to check the angle of that float. So I'll check this float again, make sure we're at 9.2, and then I'll adjust the angle of this carburetor and make sure that's at 9.2, and then we've got our new seals, and we can seal this up and call it good. So these old gaskets are pretty flattened in, hard to get out. I got a little pick in my hand, and we're going to just pick this out, and then we'll put the new one in with a little bit of gasket cinch, and we should be good.
The old one is hard, while the other one is hard.
What he's saying is the old gasket came off in pieces, it's brittle, it's falling apart, and the new one is pliable, and that should solve part of our leak issue.
We have one bolt done, time for the other.
We have this bowl left, another dried out gasket, so we're going to have to go ahead and scrape this out and then put in the new one. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the old and the new gasket. We'll go ahead and slide this into the float bowl, put this together, and we can get the carburetors back on the bike.
But you'll be the next old casket if you don't leave a like on this video.
Here we have our finished carburetor, and here's a gasket from All Balls Racing, 46-5027. Also lists all the bikes it works for. You need 2 of these gaskets for a Shadow 1100. So let's go get this on the bike. Got the carburetors and all the lines reconnected. Tank is back on. We'll go ahead and give this thing a test fire. Hope we don't have any fuel leaks, and then we can throw a seat on it. And I think we're about ready for a road test. Keep your fingers crossed. check for leaks. Hopefully we're good to go. It's got to warm up. It hasn't run in a while, so it's got a wicked sound at idle though. I'm not seeing any signs of leaks. We might have to adjust the throttle cable a hair because it's got some play in it. Alright, so we got the bike squared away. We got to get the seat on it. We should be able to take this up and down the street for a quick test ride. I'm just going to take it down to the end of the block and back. Not looking to go far with it. I still want to wash it before I put any good time in it. It's been a long time since it's been clean, so let's get the seat on and then let's see how it runs up and down the street. Alright, let's go ahead and fire this thing up, take it for a test drive, and see what it does. Well, I made it up and down the street, and that's all we had. Went to take the wife for a ride around the block. Realized the front brake's locked up. I was able to release the front brake by opening the system. So something's going on with the master cylinder or the caliper. We'll go to get some brake parts on order, get this thing going. But we got it down the street. That's a big plus. If you like what you saw, click the like and subscribe button. God bless and take care.